In this tutorial, we're once again going to talk about tables. So I'm starting with the code that I've had in tutorial 6. There's a copy of this code in the notes. You can simply copy it and paste it into this document as a starting point. Now when I render this, or refresh my page, I have my 4 cells in my table, and they only fill a very small amount of the screen. What if I wanted to stretch them to say 3/4 of the screen? Well, the way I can do that is this table, I can adjust its width. I can make it 75% of the screen. And if I refresh, my table now fills 75% of the screen, 3/4. Now you'll notice that the header cells automatically center the text, whereas these other cells here, the TD cells, do not. How can I alter that? Well, in my style, I will adjust my TD cells. So TD curly brackets, and I will do text align colon center and save. Now I will refresh and my content is centered horizontally. Now the question is, do I need to do anything else to center my text vertically? Well, the answer is no. Text align center will automatically center the items in the cell vertically as well. Let me show you. If I change the height of my cell to 200 pixels, when I refresh, the text align attribute has taken this content and, as well as centering horizontally, has made it position in the center vertically of the box. Now what if I didn't really want that? What if I wanted my content centered vertically but not centered horizontally? Well, what if I got rid of text align center and I had just a height of 200 pixels? If I refresh, my content automatically centers vertically. And aligns itself to the left hand side. Now what if I wanted a combination? What if I wanted this cell to be aligned to the left because it was some type of text, and I wanted this cell to be centered horizontally and vertically? How could I do this? Well, one way I could do it is to give it an ID. ID equals target. Now I can go hashtag target, and I can go text align center, and now I can refresh, and this specific cell is text align center vertically and horizontally, whereas this cell over here is aligned to the left only. What would happen if I copied this and added another row? Now if I refresh, fortunately the same thing occurs, even though I have used the same ID. Technically, you shouldn't use the same ID. It is actually badly formatted HTML and CSS. It still works, but technically you should use something known as a class. So I'm just going to explain the idea of a class and show you how it's implemented but you don't need to go that far if you don't want to. So in my code, I have two things known as ID of target. Bad. I should change that to a class. So how does this work really? So let's just extend our analogy from a previous lesson. In a previous lesson, we had students, and each student had a unique ID. And that's how we could tell them apart, even though they were the same item. Now what if I had two groups of students? They all had unique IDs, but I wanted to identify this group of students and I wanted to identify this group of students separately. Well, in a school we call them classes. We have an English class and a maths class. So here we would have class equals, and we could call it A. And this person could also be a member of class equals A. Now down here, this can be class equals B. This can be class equals B also. So while they are uniquely identified with a unique ID, we can also collectively identify this grouping based on their class. And that is a separate identity to this group down here. So up here, instead of having them as an ID, I will change them to a class called target. So everything in the target class is selected. Now up here you don't do hashtags for class. For a class you do a full stop followed by the class name. And now if I refresh, we see the same behavior as before, but this time we have correctly written our HTML and CSS.